All right, so this is big time, and I'm not going to do any news today. Today is just going to kind of be I guess, some sort of self-reflection or introspection or whatever you want to call it. I've posted the link, and if anybody wants to jump on and talk, that's fine. I was having a conversation with a family member, and well, let me give the scenario. I'm going to use Group A, Group B. My kid goes to a daycare that's run by Group A. We've been to we've been to we were at a party with Group A, and what we noticed about Group A was that all the people associated with Group A, there were more of them than us. They seemed to just kind of keep amongst themselves and talk to themselves. And this was noticed so much that another group of people who were not associated with Group A, another group of parents, came up to my wife and I and basically said, "Yeah, no one's really talking to us." So I'm not imagining things. I'm not making things up. Another group of people seeked us out and said, "Yeah, Group A, all the people in Group A are not talking to us." So we started talking to them. And that's not and it was tangible. You can feel that. You can feel like you're not a part of the group. And the other example I'm going to use is I live in a neighborhood that's primarily I would say maybe 85% Group B, different from Group A. And we've tried to make friends with some of the people in Group B. We were in a house in Group B, and Group B literally said to me and my wife, they said, "You know, we prefer our kids to play with other kids from Group B." They said that, no shame, no fear, no, nothing, no guilt, nothing. They said it right to our faces. And we're in their home, and we're not trying to be, I'm not trying to start an inquisition in a new person's home. But needless to say, past that point, we haven't really hung out much. And I was talking to a family member about these two scenarios. And I just find it strange that my family member was like, "Well, it must have been something." Well, first I asked my family member, "Is this okay? Like, is it cool?" And my family member said, "Well, it's very normal and natural for people to seek out their own. That's who they're most comfortable with." And I said, "Ah, okay. So Group A seeks out Group A, Group B seeks out Group B. Yes, that's normal." And she said it matter of factly, like like saying that people eat food, take shits, and breathe oxygen. Not you know what I'm saying. That's how she said it, matter of factly. And I said, "Okay, well, what if I just want to be around my group of people?" And she said, now suddenly this person gave me like a college essay. "Well, I would hope that if your child comes home with different friends, that you would make an appearance. You would try to accept other groups." And I said, "Okay, well, when we were at Group A, we were trying to, be involved in another group." And this person said to me, "Well, clearly what happened was this family member of mine fabricated. Well, clearly what happened was when you walked upon a group that was talking to themselves, they were talking about something serious and you interrupted them." And I said, "What about the other family that reached out to us that noticed the same thing?" No answer. And I was trying to ask, I said, "Okay, so it's okay for Group A and Group B. It's natural for them to seek out their own and be comfortable around their own. You said that's fine. But you said that when it comes to my family and my kid, we have to be more accepting. We have to go out of our way to accept everybody." I said, "Why don't we get the same standard?" Like, how many parties do we have to go to with Group A before we just take the hint that they don't want us there? Right. And isn't it kind of just aren't you kind of just being an asshole when you keep showing up somewhere people don't want you to be? Have you ever seen the movie Office Space? Did you get the fucking memo? So I'm asking this family member, when do we get the memo? When is it okay for us to just say this isn't worth our time? And why is it okay for them to do it, but it's not okay for us to do it? And all of a sudden, my family member, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like they got real uncomfortable. And I know, and again, like this is just something I'm trying to understand. Group A, they're allowed to do what they want. They're allowed to be around who they want. They're allowed to have a space for them. Group B, they're majority in the neighborhood. They do what they want. They say right to my face, no fear, no shame, nothing. We want our children to be around other children who look and are like us. Nothing. Nothing. No guilt. So I'm just, I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. Is that wrong? This is America, the melting pot, right? My family member literally said to me, we're all the same. And I said, are we? And my family member said, give me some ways we're different. I said, okay, well, we have different blood types. There's certain medication. I think it's Lovalox or Lovenox. I don't remember the name. Where if you give the same amount to Europe that Europeans get, if you give it to Asians, it actually has the opposite effect. African Americans have different nitrous levels in their body. You have different bacteria in your mouth. African Americans on average have thicker bones and more type 2 fast twitch musculature. African American girls tend to have their period 1 year earlier before all the other children. They tend to walk first at 8 months before European or Asian babies. I can't take blood from any person, right? I can't receive an organ just from any person, right? Things have to match up. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, if I was looking at it from an egalitarian perspective, yeah, sure. They're the magic dirt. Yeah, okay. But if I was looking at it from a medical perspective, does everybody take aspirin, or are there hundreds of types of medications to address different types of problems in the body? Well, now you have to talk about, well, different groups of people tend to suffer from different problems. Like, there was an African American soldier who sued the Ministry of Defense because he got trench foot. So he's an African American and his foot got frozen. And basically he was told in the military, man the fuck up. But he sued them for a couple £1 million saying, well, I'm African American and you should know that we don't respond well to cold climates. Well, isn't that interesting? So there he is acknowledging a racial difference, right? So that's a racial difference, right? But I'm not even going that far. Whether a group of people wants to identify by religious reasons or whether a group of people wants to identify by tribal, by blood or by genetics or by race okay. So like, what about okay. Let's say I walked into a synagogue and I was wearing a shirt that said Jesus saves and it has a cross and I have a cross on. And let's say all the small hats in the synagogue tell me to get the fuck out. Are we all the same? I understand that's not an ethno thing. That's not an ethnic religious. That's a religious identity, not an ethnic identity. But is it the same? What if I walked into a mosque and they all tell me to get the fuck out? Am I going to sit there and go, hey, we're all the same, guys? We all believe in trying to save our soul and be better people, right? Or would everybody just say, what are you doing in a mosque? Right? I'm just trying to give some examples here. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to understand how this works. I'm trying to understand the psychological programming of this family member who, for some reason, kept saying, well, when other groups self-identify and self-segregate, that's 100% totally normal. But if you point it out And if you don't try to integrate with them, somehow you're the bad person. That was fascinating to me. That was unbelievable to me. I asked them a question about another group, what they do, a normal behavior, totally acceptable, not even a second hesitation. I ask if we can do the same thing that other group is doing. Now suddenly I get a doctoral thesis on why we have to be more accepting. And I'm just curious, and the question is, why? How many parties am I supposed to go to and not talk to anybody before I just get the fucking memo, before I get the message? How long does my kid have to play by themselves because she doesn't look like the other kids and all the other kids just don't want to play with her because she doesn't look like them? Do we have to stay there and does she have to build character? Or do we have the right to move to somewhere where there's more people like us? Is magic dirt real? Is that a real concept? Like, if I take Japan, there's what, 10 million people in Japan, right? If I took 7 million of the people in Japan and they all disappeared and overnight they were replaced with Somalians, Tokyo would be 70% less Japanese, right? If I go to China right now and I spend the next, I don't know, 5 years learning Cantonese and Mandarin, and I learn all the traditions and I learn all the customs, and I don't practice Islam, so I'm not thrown in a Uyghur camp, and I bow and I dress a certain way and I act a certain way. And if I learn all the mannerisms and I eat rice every day and I learn all their customs and eat all their food and assume their diet, am I Chinese? Will if I walk to any Chinese person in China and I speak in perfect Cantonese or I speak in perfect Mandarin and I walk like them and act like them and talk like them, are you going to be surprised when they point at me and say, "You white, you're white, you're not Chinese"? Is that magical? Is anybody surprised? Is that a hard thing to figure out? I'm curious. Like I want someone to come up here and I want someone to tell me, "Hey, my family and my ancestors are from Africa, or my family and ancestors are from Europe, or my family and ancestors are from, I don't know, they're from India. But if I move to Japan, I'm Japanese." I want someone to tell me that and explain to me how that works. I want someone to tell me that, ancestry.com is just, like a lie. It's not real. I want someone to tell me why African Americans aren't allowed to declare reparations because race is a social construct. Like I want someone to come up here and talk to me. I mean, I don't think anyone ever will. I'm sure my channel is never going to get anybody ever about anything because the things I talk about are not popular. But I'm trying to, I'm just trying to understand this perspective. I tried to psychoanalyze my family member, and I think what happened is my family member is a boomer. And my family member, I believe, has been brainwashed that for years they've been pumped this propaganda that identifying with your group is bad, but everyone else is allowed to self-identify with their group. And the problem is that group A looks like us. But if you ask group A, are you this or are you that? They would say, no, we're group A. And people who are smart will know what I'm saying. But I'm not trying to get called anything. And I'm going to go a step further. If you were to try to say to these people from group A, actually, you're not group A, you're American, you will be accused of an ism. They're allowed 100% to identify as group A. I'm not, but they are. You'll be called an ism so fast. So I just want to ask a question, like, is that okay? Why is group A and group B allowed to only want to stay around group A and group B, But how come for some reason when I want to express and practice and do the same thing group A and group B do, now suddenly I'm not allowed to? I would really appreciate someone just saying, "Hey, big time. Well, actually, you see what happened. You see what happened is, like, I really want to hear this reasoning. I am, I am waiting for some. I want to try to educate me. This is an opportunity. I want. Let me be. I want to be educated. I am so curious for this answer. Just imagine if I was in my home and I told Group A or Group B, we want our children around other children who look like our children. Imagine what would happen. And I hate to do that conservative. Well, they were this and they, yeah, but that's still true. Regardless of how old that is, that's still true. And I reach a point where it's like okay, like we're trying to be a good person. Yes, of course, we want everyone to get along, but at whose detriment? It seems as though everyone else is allowed to just get along and they're just allowed to have their own identity. Okay, well, can I have an identity too? Can we have our identity? Why is everyone else allowed to have their identity, but all of a sudden we have to? Oh, guys, oh, you can't have your identity. Why not? Yeah, like there's a college right down, not too far from where I am, and they're segregating. They're segregating dorms. They're segregating graduation. They're segregating classrooms. So clearly, it's acceptable. It's accepted. And this is in a red area. I'm not talking about like a Democratic shithole. I'm talking about in a red area, they are segregating classes, dorms, graduations by race. And no one's complaining. It's actually seen as the correct thing to do. So, like, okay, well, if that's the case, why don't we just go all the way? Like, in 5 years, are we just going to segregate everybody? And look, that doesn't bother me. If people don't want to be around me, that is totally fine. If you don't want to be around us, then guess what? I don't want to be around you. Okay? If you hate me, then you hate me. Yeah, okay, fine. Just, don't raise a hand against me. Okay? I'm not giving you my money. I'm not giving you my resources. I'm not giving you my job. I won't raise any hand against you as long as you don't raise a hand against me. Okay? Just leave us alone. I'm not going into a camp or marching into an oven because you don't like me. You understand? That's not happening. But if you don't want to be around me and you want to live on your side of town, that's fine. I'm not offended by that. I go to a church. Muslims and Jews don't come into our church. Well, guess what? I don't go to synagogues or Buddhist temples or mosques. I don't go there because I'm not wanted there and I don't believe those things. I have a different religion. I just like what line is acceptable? We already separate and segregate things so much. I don't know why people just can't take it a step further. You know, I have this story, and I think this is this is gonna be the last thing I'll say, but I'm gonna give another scenario. So, and I've said this before. Group B primarily lives where I live, but there was a family that came from Baltimore, right? Now, I've talked to, I've had, I used to walk my dog by that house, and what happened is that these kids used to visit. These kids used to visit from Baltimore, and you would see the father. I have to assume it's the father he would come outside and I'd be walking my dog, and I've just seen these interactions where these kids used to play basketball here. And the kids aren't from the neighborhood because they say Baltimore. He walked out of his house one time because the kids from Baltimore were saying the N-word too much. And he was like, yo, look, you keep using that word, you're not going to be allowed back at this home. I've even had a conversation with this dude before where he was like, yeah, Baltimore was getting too dangerous and my son was falling into the wrong crowd. So, I'm assuming, okay, yeah, dad. But I was but I was very interested. So I asked him, I said, oh, so the wrong crowd, what does that mean? Oh, like the wrong kids. Like, I said, what does that mean? He goes, oh, like violent gangs, drugs. And I said, so do you mean other blacks? And he just gave me like the super, super dirty look and he walked away. But it's like, okay, let's be real. You're talking about Baltimore. All the shootings and all the drive-bys and all the houses being shot up and all the people being killed. I mean, you had a violence interrupter last year. You had an activist. I covered this story. You had an activist who he was spraying no shoot zones and graffiti on the ground, spraying and spray paint, no shoot zone, which is dumb because Baltimore has like the most abysmal. Baltimore kids mostly can't read. If you look at the graduation rates for Baltimore, they can't read. So again, that's a very typical Democrat, lefty, liberal thing to do. You think a sign is going to prevent violence. But what's the point of the sign if the kids can't read? Well, anyway, it's like, let's just be real. Like, who's committing all the carjackings and felonies and who's fighting in all the schools and who's killing everybody in Baltimore? It's your group. It's the blacks, right? This guy's basically, you left Baltimore. Oh, the kids are so bad. The kids are so dangerous that I had to leave and come to another area where it's primarily group B. Now my son is safe. But I've seen again, he doesn't answer me. He walks away. But I've seen these other instances when I'm walking my pit bull. And that's how he walked up to me because I have a pit bull. He's like, oh, well, he comes out and he yells at these kids because they curse too much. And I've even seen these kids try to like run after Indian kids and take off their bike. And I've actually had 2 altercations with these kids from Baltimore. And what's interesting is that after the second altercation I had with them, thank God nothing bad happened, but they haven't been back. After that point, they've never been back. The second altercation involved a mom who's not a part of Group B, but she literally grabbed her children and ran in her home because she was terrified. And she's not white, so don't even try to play that fucking card with me. But after the second altercation, which involved me and my child, I've never seen those kids back in this where we live. But what's interesting is that when you talk to people, you say, hey, here's a black father who recognized that where his son was and where he lived was dangerous. So he removed his son from a dangerous city, and his idea of safety was an area where there's barely any of his group. It's primarily group B, right? And when you talk to people, they go, yeah, he's a great father. He's setting the example. He's really looking out for his children. But then have fun and ask the second question. Okay, well, I don't want to move to Baltimore, and I don't want my daughter to go to schools in Baltimore. Oh, why not? Are you racist? Watch how quick they flip it on you. So, in other words, when the black family leaves the black-run city with all the black crime, they're super dad. Yet, if someone from another group says, I don't want to go to the area where this black father left, everyone's going to look at you. Are you racist? Wow, that sounds like eugenics. And it's like, you can't fucking win, bro. Like I just find it interesting that the black father's idea of safety was living somewhere where there's barely any of his group. Isn't that funny? So basically, he did an Obama. Obama left Chicago and then he moved, he has a home in Martha's Vineyard, which is 96% white. in another group. It's like, so anyway, I'm just trying to understand. So again, group A, they can prefer to be around group A. Group B, they can prefer to be around group B. But if I try to exercise the exact same things that group A and group B got to do, whoa, slow down there, buddy. You got to be accepting. You have to walk around and tell people how great they are and how brave they are and how amazing they are. And you have to, what? Get on my fucking knees and say thank you for enlightening me? With what? With what? You literally told me to my face you don't want to be around me. And I'm saying, fine, that's totally cool. You live over here, I'll live over there, and you're not getting any of my fucking money. And I won't ask for any of your money. Cool? It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. They're already segregating at the college down the street. Let's just go all the way. Why not go? I don't understand. You're literally saying at this college, we don't want the kids to be with each other. Okay. No one's complaining about it. No one's saying anything about it. So it doesn't bother you. You're teaching your children to segregate. That's what your kids are being taught. They're being taught to segregate based on race. And I'm saying, hey, if that's what they want, go ahead. Answer me this question. If group A lives in a town where it's only group A, how racist can they be to other people from other groups if none of those people are there? There's a town in South Africa called Oranje. It's made of all Afrikaans people, and no Bantu are allowed to live there. And everybody says, oh, that's racist. Well, okay, yeah, they don't let you live there, but it's hard to be racist against people who aren't there, right? Like, yeah, primarily they won't let you in. And it's a little more than that. Like, you actually have to buy your way in and become a part of the group. And there's a certain monetary amount you have to give to be a part, and you have to bring a skill set. It's like Iceland. You're not allowed to move to Iceland unless there's a job that you have that they're specifically looking for, you know? And that's just weird to me. Like, a bunch of people go into the middle of the desert, they create civilization, and then they go, you know what? We only want people to live here who are like us. Then suddenly everybody complains because, oh, well, you mean the people who didn't do anything and didn't create anything and didn't help you create your drip irrigation system to grow food in the desert. You're saying they're not allowed to just move in with you? You know, the people who contributed absolutely nothing to your town, you're not going to let them in? No. If I build a home, my family is first. Period. My family is first in line for the things I create, I build, and the money I make. Period. I mean, all right. If I'm a father, let's say I make $100,000 a year. And let's say I have 5 kids. And let's say another family from another land, whatever, I don't care, moves down the street and they're poor. And I go, man, I really need to help those kids. And I give those kids and that family all my money. And I neglect my own children. Am I a bad father? Isn't my responsibility to my 5 kids? I created those. I opened my legs and created life, correct? So now I am responsible for providing for those lives. But if I turn around and I take away resources and I just give it to other people who are not related to me by blood, I'm a bad father, right? I'm curious. So anyway, leave a comment down below. I would love to talk about this with somebody. So anyway, I'm big time. That's news to me.